Sports Radio.
Here comes the siren. I want to go higher. Oh, my goodness. He's to the drive. Deep left field. No doubt about it. Posey will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
Oh, baby, for sure.
Cabin Sports Radio starts now.
Unbreakable Mike Gibbons and Lekter with you for another episode of Cabin Sports Radio. It's Monday night, and that means that all the new sports news happens tomorrow and makes everything that you hear in the next hour somewhat irrelevant.
And we'll forget about it by next week.
That's right.
Thus, there's this vacuum of sports content out there that we're not filling.
That's how we do.
Yeah, that's
right
how it happens
here.
every week, without fail. There'll be some huge breaking news tomorrow night.
Yeah,
you
inevitably.
can take that to the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Cabin Sports Radio. I wish that breaking sports news would stop happening so consistently on Tuesdays. But maybe, nevertheless.
And I'm completely honest when I say by next week, I'll have completely forgot about it. It will not be covered in Cabin Sports Radio. We move on. There might not be a whole lot going on afterwards and the rest of this week, but there'll be something really big next Tuesday, of course, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just the way she goes.
Without fail. It's Murphy's Law here on Cabin Sports Radio. How was your weekend, Mike?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. We had our staff holiday party, much smaller
nice.
in size on Friday, so that was fun.
Yeah.
Another birthday, family birthday party on Saturday. So recovering, played a little bit of basketball yesterday, some basketball tonight too. But just really doing whatever I can at this point to not be outside for extended periods of time. It's a little chilly out there.
Do you ever feel like anyone who might be listening from outside of the territory just feels like we're gloating when we're talking about actually being able to do things together? Because, I mean, we're one of the few places in the world that we're actually able to still gather, with a relatively clean conscience and not have to worry about it too much.
Totally true. The head coach of our Spartans team was saying that to the boys on the weekend. A lot of people across the country don't have that chance right now, and so there are some returning university athletes that are coming up to Yellowknife now doing their self-isolation and wanting to run with us because they just, down south, things are shut down in various parts of the country. So we're pretty lucky in our bubble. Cases obviously popping up here and there, but very limited, if any, community spread. So I think
still none to this point.
Doing their due diligence. So we are very fortunate to be able to play rec sports, organized sports, and just gather in general. Obviously, masking in the bigger stores, social distancing measures still in effect, but for the most part, we're very lucky that we haven't had any significant outbreaks here.
Yeah, playing it safe. I mean, like you say, several stores going mandatory masks. A lot of people doing, their absolute best to respect that at every cost, and we're seeing the results. We've been strict, but we've been pretty healthy up here, which is so nice, and especially around the Christmas season. For those of us who are able to get together with friends and do have family up here. Obviously, it's a little tougher if you have family down south, but 2020 has been a tough year, so we may as well end it hard.
Yeah.
Man, I went to the gym. Speaking of, first time in 2020, first time since COVID that I went to the gym this past Saturday, and my God, I don't know if you could tell from how I was walking kind of like a stiff-legged pirate down the hall as we came towards Studio 3 here.
No.
I can barely move today.
So we're talking you were doing reps, you were in a gym.
I was doing a full-on workout. I was trying to basically do a whole body.
Okay.
I was trying to basically do what I had been doing before I stopped going to the gym when everything shut down for a couple months here in March. And,
She hurts.
I am feeling it today. My legs feel like they're attempting to bend the wrong way when I walk because the muscles they're grumpy.
It'll do that.
Oh.
I'm a little bit selfish. I feel part of the reason why I wanted to join and coach for the high performance boys team this year, so that I could get in the gym a little bit more to help me get in shape a bit more for our season. But obviously, it's a lot of fun running with those guys. I full disclosure here, like I'll have to take myself out for like drills at a time after, I'm doing a there and back and they're doing a full 30 in the gym. And after that, I'll have to excuse myself, maybe swap in with the other coach. Can you take this next drill?
Hey, why can't you be a tag team? You're coaches.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
And we're pretty fair in that area, so we will swap in, swap out. It hurts. That was, we're still like, only a month in after 6 to 7 plus months of I'm not counting slow pitch.
No, of course
very
not.
little exercise. But I commend you for going to the gym in the first place. I just play sports, rec sports. And then you have some adult beverages after, so it negates everything you just did for the past hour and a half.
I was given some fantastic advice. I'm sure you've heard the saying, anything worth doing is worth doing right.
Yeah,
I heard a different spin on it, which is anything that's worth doing is worth doing poorly. And the more I thought about it, it's like, because anything that is worth doing is going to be a struggle the first time you do it.
Yeah.
But it's worth doing poorly because you're going to get better.
Totally.
And I am carrying that mentality right back into the gym today. So wish me luck in continuing to struggle to walk.
You're going in again today?
I'm going in again today.
Good for you.
Absolutely.
That's how it starts.
Yeah, well, this is early to mid-30s. We got to start.
Oh, yeah. Do you see that picture of Austin Matthews? They're calling him the quad god now. He was wearing some like low-cut shorts or something like that, and his quads are just bursting.
Oh, my God.
He's, That
good to
image
hear.
Going around the NHL right now that he didn't skip leg day during the course of COVID. So we shouldn't either.
Nice to hear that this year's off-season news for Austin Matthews is low-cut shorts and showing off rather than pulling his pants down and showing
mooning
off.
security officers.
This year is off to a better start already.
It is.
With that in mind, enough of the trials and tribulations of early to mid-30s radio hosts. Let's talk about some actual professional sports and athletes and what is going on in the world of sports with a look at your CSR headlines.
The National Hockey League is eyeing January 13th as a potential start date for the 2021 season. Reports suggest the league would temporarily condense its 6 divisions into 4 in order to ease travel burdens during the COVID-19 pandemic. Of note, an all-Canadian division featuring all 7 teams north of the border. The proposed realignment is, of course, subject to change, but will have to be finalized soon if the league hopes to hit a start date of January 13th.
Now, I have to admit that I have not been paying super close attention, just because after our conversation yesterday, and in reference to what we said right off the top, that breaking news in the sports world just seems to inevitably come out the following Tuesday morning after we record the show. They still haven't. Did they say with regards to the divisions and the All-Canadian division, will it be all 56 games encased in those respective divisions?
Good question.
Yeah.
So I think they're having Board of Governors meetings now. So we're sort of news is sort of trickling in and out. Insiders, Elliot Friedman's been reporting on it, Pierre Lebrun for TSN. So they've sort of been coming out in little tidbits. Nothing confirmed, but it seems like this is at least the skeleton for an original proposal for getting started on January 13th. Yeah. And if that's the case, like they've got to finalize that this week, you would think.
Yeah.
If we're talking, it even seems premature for the NBA returning on December 22nd. Like, we're only just having guys reporting to practice now. So if they're pretty realistic about this January 13th start day, you got to start training camps immediately, and you can't give less than a week's notice. All right, you got to report. So the ball's got to start rolling a little bit faster here. But I think this is the original proposal that's set forth there right now. I think there's some common agreement. We might see some tweaks. I think one of the ones I heard was Minnesota from one division swapping in for Dallas in one of the 4. But the idea here being that these are all teams in these 4 divisions anyways, geographically closer to one another, so you can limit travel. You're in your own sort of, I mean, it's not going to be perfect. These are going to be massive bubbles.
Not.
Tampa to Detroit, that's pretty far.
Yeah,
we're literally going across the country.
That's the one that stands out the most, for sure.
But the one that I think we've been hearing for a long time now is this all-Canadian division.
Yeah.
Of course, the added element of there being no non-essential travel across the American and Canadian border right now. So I think that makes sense. But yeah, if we're looking at I think 56 games is probably what we're going to get.
That seems to have been the consistent number.
Yeah, with a January 13th start date. Good question, though. Are we going to see, the same 7 teams playing each other for 56 games, and then we hop into another bubble style like we saw in Edmonton and Toronto in the playoffs last year? So I think that kind of remains to be ironed out. That would, you get a lot of face time with those teams, which would be good from a rivalry standpoint. But you'd like to see a little added flavor, probably.
Absolutely,
so how they work around that, we're going to see it ironed out probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
Breaking news tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I mean, the situation is what it is, and if the teams do have to stay, and play all of their games against each other in their respective divisions, that's kind of just the way it is. Whatever, we'll get through it. I think we'll all just be happy to watch an NHL season, whatever form it takes. But as far as with regards to the 2020 NHL playoffs and the Stanley Cup Finals, and the whole thing with the bubbles and the play-in round to begin with, there was, as you may recall, people were calling it was going to be a COVID Cup, and there was going to be an asterisk next to whatever team did win, especially if the Toronto Maple Leafs won.
Right.
I would think that if you are having an all-Canadian division, and then all these other divisions that, may or may not be as strong or weaker than other divisions like that, it doesn't do much to remove a potential asterisk from, legitimacy as far as the end of the year, what ends up shaking down. It's going to be strange. Hopefully we can get to a point where, obviously, as everyone knows, COVID-19 vaccinations are starting to be rolled out. Yep. If that can ramp up and, perhaps those can make it to more NHL teams, at least then we could open up the border to restricted travel, and then maybe there's some opportunities there to expand upon the rest of this season. But, that is still so up in the air that I can't even imagine that the Board of Governors are really even factoring that into any sort of plan.
Yeah. And I know that the MLB and the NFL did experiment with some limited gatherings in their stadiums for select regular season games. I believe some NHL teams, Boston being one of them, I think Detroit was another, maybe Minnesota, were flirting with the idea of holding their games at outdoor venues for some of them. So we'll see if that picks up some traction. But you're right. Some teams stand to gain a lot more than others. Some are immediately placed at a disadvantage. I'm sure we'll want to revisit the Canadian one. So just looking at the other 3. So in the one, you've got Boston, Buffalo, the 2 New York teams, the Islanders, the Rangers, New Jersey, Philly, Pittsburgh, and Washington. So a pretty metropolitan division heavy division.
Yeah.
And then you're throwing in the 2 Atlantic teams with Buffalo and Boston, who I feel like are a little bit disadvantaged. They're now moving from the Atlantic Division, where they would have lesser foes. Like they always match up well against the Maple Leafs. We knew that.
Yeah, both teams really.
Yeah, but you're not seeing the Sens anymore. You're not seeing the Panthers. You're not seeing the Canadians. Now you're going up against some metropolitan juggernauts. Philly, fresh off a good season. The Rangers are going to be better. The Islanders were in the mix. And Pittsburgh, Washington, you figure there'll probably be, as long as Ovechkin and Malkin and Sidney Crosby are in the fold. They'll be competitive.
Yeah. New Jersey's anyone's guess.
New Jersey is anyone's guess. Yeah. Buffalo could be a surprise team maybe with the addition of Taylor Hall.
Yep.
Jack Eichel finally has a very legitimate line mate now, so which he has longed for. So maybe they're a surprise team in that conference or division, I should say. So I feel like in pretty much every division, some teams are going to have it a little worse than they did previously, just based on matchups alone.
Yeah, I feel like Nashville and Columbus maybe looking at, and Tampa maybe looking at that potential division, kind of licking their chops a little bit.
Yeah,
but
so you got the two Florida teams, the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning. Nashville, Carolina, Columbus, Detroit, Chicago, and Minnesota.
Yeah.
So that's one division there. That's the one we were kind of making fun of from a geographical sense anyways. You're sprinkling in some Atlantic teams with Tampa, Florida, and Detroit. And then, you're going to have teams traveling from Florida all the way as far north as you can go, pretty much, to Michigan to play against the Red Wings. Some other sort of central division, but also Central American teams there in Chicago, Minnesota, Columbus.
Definitely going longitude over latitude over that one. Yeah.
For sure. And then you sprinkle in Nashville and Carolina. So, yeah, the reigning champs are, like you said, probably looking at this division going, all right, I don't have to face the Toronto Maple Leafs as often, the Boston Bruins as often. So they might fare better in this one. You got a rebuilding Detroit team. Unbeknownst to Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, the Chicago Blackhawks are pretty close to dropping the R word for rebuilding. And, Minnesota has always sort of factored into the playoffs, never really been much of a threat. Columbus is sort of retooling a little bit.
Yeah, usually a token first-round exit for Minnesota.
But Nashville and Carolina could pose a bit of problems for that division as well. And then our last division before we get to the All-Canadian one. So you got all the California teams, I should say.
Yep.
The Sharks, the Kings, the Ducks, new Pacific team in the Vegas Golden Knights. And then you've got some more of those Central Division teams worked in: Colorado, Arizona, Dallas, and St. Louis.
And geographically, you kind of have St. Louis being like, what?
Yeah.
Why? What?
Yep. So one of and I think when the Board of Governors was going over this first proposal, one swap we could see would be Dallas going to the previous division, swapping out Minnesota. Because, otherwise we got all the California teams. You got two Arizona team, one Arizona team, one Nevada team, but they're right beside each other. And then Colorado, Denver, Dallas, Texas, and St. Louis, Missouri. So you're right. Yeah, they're probably the oddball in that division there. But that's a pretty strong. Well, remove the three California teams. Vegas is going to be good. Colorado will be good. Dallas, fresh off their run to the final, should be pretty strong, and St. Louis. So,
nevertheless, despite all of the potential uncertainty, I saw the Toronto Star just wasting no time in getting Maple Leafs fans' hopes up with a headline that read, "Make no mistake about it, the Toronto Maple Leafs are the best team in an all-Canadian division."
Yep.
Like, okay, we haven't played a game yet. We haven't even started training camp yet, but there it is. They are the best team. They've been called.
So that's where we're going now. So now we know that, of course, the other division, Toronto, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, Edmonton, all 7 Canadian teams in one division. And you and I are consulting the same sources, apparently, because pretty much everywhere I've read that has produced power rankings based on these proposed realigned divisions has the Toronto Maple Leafs in the number 1 spot.
Yeah. I mean, you got to have something to write about.
Yep,
right?
Yeah. So throwing shade at the Vancouver Canucks, who had a really nice a playoff run there,
nice surprise run. Yeah, something to build on for sure. And I think only got arguably stronger. In the offseason.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, some interesting additions there. I mean, Toronto, I think on paper, a lot of analysts are chalking them up as potentially having gotten stronger. You know, we've kind of gone back and forth as to whether or not their offseason acquisitions really address their big needs. You know, again, we don't know anything until the puck drops and the season starts. So we can, you know, talk all day about it. But their oldest addition, Joe Thornton.
That's right.
Just on his way back from Switzerland.
That's right. He was in Davos.
Yes.
Is that correct? Finished his stint there. So imagine he's probably in tip-top shape.
I imagine
coming over, he's gonna fill that. That is something that they have been missing, especially after the departure of Patty Marleau 2 seasons ago for what amounted to, I think, a pick. Or no, we had to send a pick with him.
Yeah, because they were trying to get rid of his contract, basically.
Yeah. But that veteran presence has really been lacking. I mean, you've got some guys in the room.
You got the fighter, Jason Spezza.
Well, that's right. Yeah, you've got Spezza now. You've got a guy who's won it too with Jake Muzzin.
Yep.
So that is in the locker room now, and you like to think that is the type of thing that would keep these younger guys accountable. You know, they're hungry, they're extremely talented, but largely unproven on the largest stage, just because they have yet to, with this core of Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, really burst the bubble of their potential and not get past the first round once. And that goes back to 2013, that they've been in the picture, not been able to get past the first round.
You know what? And if nothing else, that young core now is 2 years more experience since Patrick Marleau is part of that team. Having Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton, yes, adds a veteran presence, and you would have to think adds a bit of a rallying cry element as, you know, 2 longtime veterans who have never won a Stanley Cup. If you can't find it in yourself to the motivation to play harder, to compete, to win, to try and get those 2 guys a Stanley Cup, I mean, then, you know, why are you even playing? Like, everyone wants to see it. If you're playing on their team, you should want to win for them. And I have no doubt that Joe Thornton, you know, despite the fact that obviously his best days are long behind him, he will have that presence to say, hey, guys, can you pick it up? Like, old man Joe here has only got so much time left. I would like to win a Stanley Cup. You guys could really help me out by playing to your full potential. So that'll be interesting. Well, remains to be seen whether or not the season or training camp, when that'll kick off. Hopefully the season starts January 13th, but information and discussion still ongoing. Hopefully some breaking news tomorrow morning.
Yes, of course. And we'll potentially report on it next Monday if we remember when another edition of Cabin Sports Radio hits the airwaves. A lot of kind of standing pat for a lot of the other Canadian teams, and maybe that's why on a lot of the power rankings I've seen anyways, the Maple Leafs are at the top of a proposed all-Canadian division. Edmonton, you would think would factor into that mix, obviously, with probably the 2 best players, period, in the division, and Connor McDavid and Leo Draisaitl, but didn't address one of their big needs, which of course was goaltending. So they're going to be rolling out the same tandem that they had last year, and Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith. Calgary will have to eat the departure of TJ Brody, who's going over to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So surprised to see that the Canucks maybe weren't getting a little bit more love. Obviously lose their number 1 goalie in free agency in Markstrom, but get a reigning or a former Vezina Trophy winner in Braden Holtby,
and Stanley Cup winner.
And they've got Thatcher Demko. So and they're a team that is only going to get better as their core grows together. They've got a really surprising, fun, exciting core in Vancouver. And Winnipeg. They've always been a fairly tough team.
They're very much still kind of anyone's guess. You know, they've taken steps. Obviously, their young core, you know, gains another year of experience as well. But that defense, you know, like it's still
Got the reigning Vezina Trophy winner.
Yeah, I mean, still reeling from that, that mass exodus of their defensive top six. 5 of the top 6 gone the next year. So the Winnipeg Jets will. I'm sure they will continue to plug away. They're still a good team, and like you pointed out, reigning Vezina Trophy winner in Connor Hellebuck, with a depleted defense core in front of them.
Yeah,
so if they can take another step, I really don't know what to expect out of the Winnipeg Jets. Plus, I mean, the entire offseason, there's been rumors surrounding Patrick Laine.
Yeah,
will they look to trade him?
Right.
Will they keep him? Will he resign? Is he happy in Winnipeg? It's so much. There's a lot of unknowns with regards to the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got. I think arguably the best coach in the league, especially for a young team, in Paul Maurice.
Yep.
The job he has done, considering the circumstances that he has had to and that team has had to put up with in the last couple of years, man, you can't ask for anything more from that guy. Definitely deserves a Jack Adams at some point.
And really elite in terms of their forward core, I would say, especially in that division. Between Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, Patrick Laine,
Kyle Connor.
Yeah, they can score with the best of them.
Yep.
So lacking on the defensive end, but really, really elite, versatile forwards. So that alone will get them some wins in an all-Canadian division. I think probably the one thing we can agree on is the two teams that are probably staring at the longest odds would be the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators. The Sens, anyways, firmly committed to a rebuild as they have been. I think only the Detroit Red Wings surrendered more goals last year, who are also firmly committed to a rebuild. So we might see some tough years ahead in the nation's capital. And Montreal, again, a bit of an enigma. They lose Max Domi in the offseason. So how much does that hurt?
Every time we count them out, though,
that's true.
They're
true.
right on the cusp. And once again this year, we're right on the cusp and, just missed out on that play-in round. You never know with the Montreal Canadiens.
No, you don't.
There's always some kind of X factor there, and usually his name is Carey Price.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
he's a pretty good goaltender.
He's pretty good. Yeah.
Well, we'll keep things in Canada, but maybe shift our gaze a little bit to the West Coast, where Vancouver Canucks goaltender Braden Holtby will not wear the new Indigenous-themed mask he planned to debut with his new team this season after being accused of cultural appropriation. The mask, which featured the myth of the Thunderbird, a Canadian West Coast myth, was created by Swedish artist Dave Gunnarsson. Holtby has since apologized for having the mask commissioned and has committed to working with an Indigenous artist on a new mask for the upcoming season.
I follow a Twitter account I've followed for a long time called Pass It to Boolis. I don't know if you're familiar. It's kind of a Vancouver Canucks themed. They write articles about the Vancouver Canucks, usually with a little bit of like tongue-in-cheek humor in there. And they sent a shout out to Braden Holtby. He said, "Man, like Braden Holtby is such a good guy that he had like fully apologized and taken on accountability for an error in judgment." Before I had even finished writing this article about it. Braden Holtby obviously wasting no time in just acknowledging the thoughts and the feelings of those who took exception to his mask design, and not so much the design itself, but the fact that it was Indigenous art being appropriated by someone who it didn't belong to. And fair enough. So that's very cool that he's committed to work with an Indigenous artist, and I assume they'll probably come up with a design that is somewhere in the same type of area, but very cool that in a situation where he probably could have just ignored it and moved on. He's holding himself accountable, and I have to think endearing himself to the fan base of the Vancouver Canucks is his brand new team even more so.
Yeah, definitely. Same boat. I think by the time that I had even found out that he was mirrored in a bit of a controversy, I think the top line of the article was Braden Holtby has apologized, has already committed to work with a new artist on a new mask. the position of goaltender is pretty cool because you do have that sort of creative expression.
Yeah.
And we've seen over the years some really cool masks that tell different stories. They can be personal. They can be, tied into the fan base that you're a part of or the city that you represent when you play. So you have a lot of creative freedom, really, to express whatever you want on your mask, which is a really cool part of that position. And he wanted to tie in the sort of various cultures around Vancouver. The issue with it being, though, that he didn't consult someone from the area, and especially someone who is Indigenous. So the mask itself is quite stunning. It's really, really nice artwork. Yeah. It probably is appropriate, respectful, but the question needs to be asked, who is responsible for making this art? Yes. And I think that's where groups took issue with it, that this was a Sweden-based goalie mask artist. Yeah. So that's where the problem rests with a lot of Indigenous leaders who spoke out about it. But he, to his credit, very receptive to that and has already committed, based on some suggestions from folks who reached out to him, has committed to working with an Indigenous local artist on a new mask for the upcoming season, which I'm sure will be just as great.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you pointed out, there's nothing wrong with the mask itself. Right. It's just that, when you are commissioning a piece that involves designs that are culturally appropriative to a certain group of people, you should probably get an artist from that culture to design the mask. There's nothing related to Swedish culture with regards to the mask design. So there's plenty of Canadian artists who do art for goaltending masks. And, I mean, it's such a big thing nowadays. Like you say, there's it's kind of something that fans look forward to every year when there is a goalie that's moving to a different team. Yep. I mean, you got to get a new mask design, and you can't just rock the plain white mask anymore. You look like,
unless you're like an emergency backup.
That's what you look like, right? If you wear a plain mask, it's just like, are you not planning to be there long? Or
it'll look like the Detroit Red Wings new reverse retro jersey, basically. All white. Yeah.
Are
you on the practice squad? Or what's going on here?
Dan Cloutier, you were the last one who got away with that. Dominic Hasek. No. But now you got to have some cool art on your goalie mask. And, I mean, we all remember growing up our favorite goalie masks, like the Felix Potvin with the Toronto Maple Leafs back in the day. I can't even count the number of times I drew that mask just because I was obsessed with it as a kid.
Cujo had a nice
Cujo had a great one, Of course, John Van Beesbrook with the Florida Panthers had one of the greatest goalie masks of all time. There's been so many good ones throughout history, but it is a big thing that people look forward to when a goalie moves to a new team, the new mask designs. So obviously, when that came out and it came to light that it was designed by someone in Sweden who had no ties to the culture whatsoever, there was going to be some criticisms of that. So, good on Braden Holtby for not being indignant, just listening to the fans and saying, you know what, that's a really good point. Yeah. Why just acknowledge it, move on, and that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, at the end of the day, when you are the starting goaltender for a brand new team, the last thing you want to minimize off-ice distractions as much as possible. Right. So just kind of behooved him to move in this direction anyway. Regardless of your political affiliations.
That's right. So good on him. We look forward to seeing the new mask. It's been an interesting off-season. I was reminded when this story came out that he probably only recently got to Canada to join his teammates whenever they do hit the ice together and start preparing for the upcoming season, hopefully by January 13th. But he had a little bit of a border issue, and it involved his two turtles. So he only recently made it back into the country. He needed help securing export papers from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to bring his two turtles into Canada. Thankfully, I think it was following his wife on Twitter and the little adventure they had trying to get across the border. all is good now. They got the proper documentation. He was able to come into the country with his 2 tortoises. Is that
Tortoises?
is that how you pronounce it?
Tortoises?
Tortoises. I think that's why I switched it.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So I that's why you see I wrote turtles there. Tortoises.
Well, we were already dealing with a COVID-19 outbreak and pandemic. The last thing we need is a salmonella.
That's right.
Outbreak. So,
I wonder how big they are.
But
I'm happy that they've made it across.
Wonder how old they are.
I know. Yeah.
Those things can live for like hundreds of years.
Yeah. They always say that, goalies are different.
Yes.
So it doesn't
just tracks.
It doesn't surprise me that the 2 pets that he's trying to bring across the border are 2 probably I'm imagining big turtles now.
Yeah.
If there's going to be that much of an issue made over bringing them over the border, I'm imagining these are bordering on, Ninja Turtle type size that are now hopefully safely
mutated
in
turtles,
Canada.
you say.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I wrote turtles, to save myself from embarrassment, but
Fair
it came
enough.
up. All right, Lekter, our final CSR headline, and sort of touching again on the sensitive issue of cultural appropriation. So after 105 years, the Cleveland Indians have reportedly decided to change their team name, with an official announcement coming as early as next week. The decision comes after decades of protests from indigenous groups and fans who have criticized the name as being racist. A similar approach was undertaken in the NFL, you'll recall, earlier this year by the Washington football team, which decided to stop using a name that had long been considered a racial slur.
Now, Jesse and I on the mornings at the cabin this morning, we were trying to remember what the mascot name of the Cleveland Indians logo was. You remember what it is?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Chief Wahoo.
There it is.
Yeah.
Cringe.
Yeah. Did Jesse wear his Caucasians
He did
t-shirt?
not. No,
he
might rock that one tomorrow. Yeah. But this is something that they announced previously that they were moving away.
Yes.
From the Chief Wahoo logo.
Yeah.
It's hard to even just say that name. It's just so brutal.
Yeah.
That they were moving away from the logo, distancing themselves. The changing the team name, you would think was pretty much inevitable.
Yes.
Especially with regards to the now Washington football team being really like the major pillar with regards to pro sports teams using indigenous names and imagery in their monikers. Mm-hmm. That one was easily, and we've said this for years, that one is easily the most offensive.
Yes.
And but at the same time, it seemed like they were going to fight it till the bitter end. Mm-hmm. And it was going to take a monumental effort to convince them that name change should happen. I think basically money spoke.
Yeah.
Some sponsorships were
big
on the
sponsorships,
line. Yeah. And lo and behold, the Washington Redskins are no more. It is now the Washington football team with a name to come later on. And so now the Cleveland baseball team, they can, I guess, move to a temporary name in the meantime.
Yeah.
Perhaps the Cleveland MLBers was my suggestion this morning. Because as you may recall or may know that back in the day in the CFL, during the CFL's U.S. expansion days, there was the Baltimore Colts, which were forced to change their name after, I think, maybe 2 seasons in the CFL, because the group that were previous owners of the Baltimore Colts of the NFL, that franchise was no more, but the rights were still held by someone. They sued, and the Baltimore Colts of the CFL were forced to change their name, but took a season to figure out what that would be. It seems to be tradition with sports teams. You can't just make snap decisions.
No, you can't.
And they went 1 season without a name, so fans just knew them affectionately as the Baltimore CFLers.
Wow. Okay. So this could be in play. Maybe that's something we see for a little bit anyways.
Yeah.
I imagine they'll go the same route as the Washington football team. We're talking 105 years. That's been their name.
Yeah.
So it'll probably take some time. They did, like you said, they committed to a thorough review and consultation process of its name. And now we could find out as early as next week, determine that it wasn't appropriate, and they are going to undertake a team name change. which is the right call. I think it was 2 years ago, 2018, that they eradicated the Wahoo mascot, which was horrible. And we're seeing other teams. I think the Kansas City Chiefs have removed they had the arrow chop gesture. I think we're seeing that being waived out. And there are still some other names that might have, problematic connotations. The Atlanta Braves, the Chicago Blackhawks. I think the Edmonton CFL team has also committed to a review of its team name.
Yeah. I think they just put out a press release either last week or the week before that they are going to basically do a fan survey.
Right,
for names. Because there was names being thrown around as suggestions, but they're going to officially put it up to a fan survey to decide what the next name of the Edmonton former Eskimos should be.
It's a long process, so I think, and that's why I think they'll go the route of the Washington football team. Maybe that's their name, the Cleveland baseball team, for a year or so before they can get their ducks in a row.
With the Major League Baseball having such a long history, like you say, 105 years that they've had this name, you can
take time.
And you can, if you want to do that interim name thing, you can go way back, like really, really lean into the long time history of baseball and call them, instead of the Cleveland baseball team, call them the Cleveland Baseball Squadron.
There you go. I kind of like that.
Yeah, right.
It's got a certain ring to it.
Yeah, just change the colors to black and white. And there you go.
They're going to come to battle every night. So we'll see. But that's my prediction, anyways.
Yeah,
I would Squadron. I like that.
Yeah,
work that in.
It's classy.
Why not? A team would just be. We expected that. We expected you to that would be the placeholder for a year. Throw it up. Throw in a curveball.
Absolutely.
Throw in Squadron.
Go MLBers.
Yeah.
So, and the one thing we can pretty much predict with regards to the Edmonton football team is that the new moniker will start with an E, because, as we've said before, when they were making the decision to change the team name, and it was like, well, you don't even have to change the logo,
right?
That's the beauty of it. It's just the double E. Just change it to a new E moniker.
That's right,
man. You're good to go.
Yeah.
So, we'll find out. That'll hopefully be coming out maybe in the next couple months. What their new team name is. Obviously, there was no CFL season, so they've had plenty of time to think about it. But that's another step in progress, and teams not using names that they don't have to.
They really shouldn't be using.
They really shouldn't be using.
Yeah. So who knows? There might be more to come. Like we said, there's some other sort of problematic ones, and. I remember with the Eskimos one, Jordan Tutu offered his 2 cents, and basically saying it depends on who you ask, and it depends on what the intent of the team ownership group at the time was trying to do when they named it the Eskimos. Because I think he said, if I ask my grandfather, it elicits feelings of pride and joy.
Right.
But if I ask other people, it might have other stereotypes tied into it. So
he had a really great take.
He did,
on it. If you're listening and you never saw Jordan Tutu's statement on the Edmonton Eskimos name and whether or not they should change it, probably the best take I think I've seen from anyone on it. Like, obviously very of the culture, and just very impartial, very objective, very thoughtful. Yeah. He covered all sides of the issue without, pointing the finger at one side or the other. It was very eloquently written. And if you haven't seen Jordan Tutu's statement on it, I'm sure you can find it with a quick Google search. Yeah. But I remember reading it and just thinking, why can't all discussions go this way?
Yeah. Why someone who hails from Nunavut, identifies as a Nook, you're going to listen to them when they have something to say on the matter.
At least we should.
We should. So I think what we're asking for is deep, meaningful consultation with the right groups to come up with a name that best suits whatever locale you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, as you may remember, last week on Cabin Sports Radio, I gave Mike a little quiz in the second segment of the show. Well, he has returned the favor, and that happens next on Cabin Sports Radio.
You're listening to Cabin Sports Radio, brought to you by Sport North. Moving sport forward.
Cabin Sports Radio brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward, and it is now time for the quiz. New segment we have appropriated from the NHL on TSN crew because it's just not as fun without John Tortorella there. So we thought, let's try and make it fun here on Cabin Sports Radio. Mike has assembled a few quiz questions for me. I sprung a quiz on him last week. He said, Lekter, that is a dirty trick. You are a naughty boy, and I will have my revenge next week. So here we are.
I'm a little nervous. Mine's not quite as tough as yours.
I don't know. I was pre-reading your questions.
Okay.
It's a good thing you didn't put the answers down. Because
Yes.
I was going to look at them.
And we got to have full disclosure here. We have to stay committed to the cause. No cheating. No
cheating,
no
no.
Googling over the course of the workday.
Of course not.
When we share our documents with each other pre-show. You had some great questions last week. The 1995 Toronto Raptors starting five.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good one.
That was fun.
I was
Yeah.
really, really happy that I was able to get the DC one at the end.
Yes.
Because I forgot about Doug Christie.
Right.
So some really good questions. I'm hoping, I feel like mine progressively get a little bit more difficult, but I'm hoping...
yeah, these are pretty good ones.
Okay.
I'm not so confident.
Okay. Well, I've got all the answers here. I'll walk you through them if needed. We'll throw some hints in there.
All right.
But I'm not trying to embarrass my co-host here.
No, by all means.
It's all in
away.
good fun. All right, so we touched on it earlier. According to the latest reports, it seems like the NHL will begin its next season on January 13th with 4 divisions, including an all-Canadian division. According to NHL.com, name the 5 best centers, in any order, on Canadian-based teams.
Okay, so I would have to think that Austin Matthews slides in there at some point.
Yes.
Connor McDavid, obviously.
Yes.
Now, I was thinking it depends on whether or not they classify Leon Draisaitl as a center, because he does play center sometimes.
Right.
I think he more often plays wing.
Yes.
But is he on there?
He is classified as center/left wing.
Okay.
He is on this list.
He is on the
yes.
list.
So
Okay.
you've already had 3 out of 5.
So I got 3 out of 5. Okay, so now who would be left? I would have to think that Mark Scheifele is probably in the top 5.
He slides in at number 5 on my list. Number
5.
17.
Ooh, wow.
Now that is for across the entire NHL.
NHL.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's probably where
I will say, you mentioned Connor McDavid, so he was number 2.
Right.
Leon Draisaitl, number 3.
Wow.
Austin Matthews, number 4.
Okay.
Mark Scheifele, number 13. Sorry, did I say 17? 13.
Oh, he's doing better already.
So, number 1, you can probably guess who.
Mark Scheifele jumping 4 spots.
Yes, just like that, because Mike can't read. Number 1, you can probably guess.
So number 1. So I haven't got number 1.
So, no, I'm sorry, they're not. I mean, across the entire NHL right now, because Connor McDavid is number 2, Draisaitl number 3, Matthews number 4.
So I guess Sidney Crosby?
No, he's in the Western Conference.
Okay.
He's 2 years older than Connor McDavid.
2 years older than McDavid.
He's on a Central Division team. He hails from the same city as Sidney Crosby.
Oh, Nathan McKinnon.
Nathan McKinnon,
right.
yeah.
I think I kind of forgot he was a center, too.
Yeah. And I was surprised. You know, this might have been fantasy standings for players at the center position.
Right.
I would have assumed Connor McDavid would be at number 1, but they're both very good hockey players with very similar play styles.
McKinnon has a bit more of a mean streak.
Yeah.
I think that gives him like a bit of a bump, maybe over Connor McDavid.
And, so, you know, in the speed department, they're pretty much identical.
Yeah.
They're obviously great teammates, great finishers.
Yeah.
I would say, I guess McKinnon's earned a little more playoff success, if you will.
Yeah. But it just plays with a bit more edge.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, a little more fire.
Yeah.
A little more fire, but McDavid 2 years his junior, so I mean,
and
he's
still filling out.
Oh yeah. He's going to be a very good hockey player for a long time to come. So number 4 on our list, who you have not named, number 7 overall on the NHL.com fantasy standings for center position.
So I have a feeling that it might be, and this is another one that I'm kind of putting in the same camp as Leon Draisaitl. I'm not sure if he's classified as a center because I think he plays both. Elias Pettersson.
There you go.
Okay.
Number 7.
I was thinking Beau Horvath because I know he plays center all the time. I thought Pettersson kind of also goes
Right.
back and forth. Maybe I just don't watch enough Vancouver Canucks games.
I feel like I'm going to watch more of the Canucks this year.
I
want to.
watch
Yeah,
more of
me
the
too.
Canucks. They're just on so late.
Yeah. You got to catch the late night special after the East Coast game.
Yeah.
And hey, if we got an all-Canadian division, we'll probably be watching more of them anyways.
True enough.
So there you go. Connor McDavid, number 2. Leon Draisaitl, number 3. Austin Matthews, number 4. Elias Peterson, number 7. Mark Scheifele, number 13, for your top 5 players at the center division, position on Canadian-based NHL teams.
Okay, well, that wasn't too painful.
That was pretty good.
Okay.
That was pretty good.
This next one, I'm not so confident about.
I think you'll be okay. And
All
with
right.
some hints, you will absolutely be okay.
Okay.
Now, name the last 5 Art Ross winners from Canadian-based teams. As a bonus, because one player, who I'm sure you will say immediately, appears twice on this list, can you name the 6th player?
Okay, so the Art Ross Trophy, of course, goes to the top point scorer in the NHL. So, obviously, Connor McDavid.
He is the one who appears twice. 2018 and 2017 Art Ross winner.
Okay, so we got that one out of the way.
Yep.
Leon Draisaitl.
No.
He didn't win an Art Ross? Didn't he win last year?
Oh, my goodness, he did.
Oh. I've broken your quiz.
You broke it because, for the shortened season. Oh my goodness, I didn't have him on this list.
So can I name the 7th?
Okay. Wow. Okay. So we have the 2019, the 2018, and the 2017 were all won from a Canadian-based team.
Right.
I don't have him on this list. That is incredibly embarrassing.
What
I'm
a
sorry.
diss to Leon. Oh, well.
Why would I do that?
Well, I mean,
I think it's because, because when they decided that they would be jumping right into the playoff bubble in Edmonton and Toronto, I remember, because the NBA, they played 8 more regular season games, and those games would factor into regular season statistics, and they would base, MVP votes, Rookie of the Year votes on those games as well. When the NHL decided it was going straight into playoffs, that's when everyone was like, oh, Leon Draisaitl, he won.
Right.
He won the Art Ross. So that is my mistake. You broke my quiz.
All right.
But we can still have fun. I still have 4 other names on here.
Okay. Now, these ones I'm not confident about.
Okay.
Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, the mystery man.
Yep.
I was very confident about. But, as for the rest, man, I can't. So, I don't think a Toronto Maple Leafs player has won an Art Ross trophy.
Nope.
Maybe
all 3 of them. So the remaining 4 names are all from the Western Conference.
All from the West. Okay. So now I think one was maybe Johnny Gaudreau.
No. We're going back to 2011 now.
Okay. 2011. Who would have won?
Of those 4,
race?
2 are Canadian.
Okay.
But we're going back pretty far. We're going back to 2002 for one of them.
Oh,
and
wow.
1987 for the other.
I was afraid of this.
87 might make it easy for you.
87, yeah. I was going to mention his name. I was going to try and save it for last.
Okay.
But, the great one.
Yes.
Wayne Gretzky.
1987, Edmonton Oilers.
Okay. I figured we would be going back that far.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to think, and okay. So we've got McDavid, Gretzky, Draisaitl.
Yep.
And how many? I'm missing 3.
So there's 3.
Okay.
You should
they're
be pretty
all in
much
the
done, but
Western
you broke my quiz.
Yeah.
So 1 is Canadian.
Okay.
2, and I feel like this is going to give it away right away, Swedish.
2 sweet. Oh, right. Yes. Okay. So, but would it have been Henrik or Daniel?
Or both.
Or both. Was it both?
Both.
Oh, of course.
2011.
One couldn't do anything without the other. What am
Daniel
I thinking?
Sedin. 2010, Henrik Sedin.
Right. Okay. So I'm just missing the 2002.
Oh, and we talked about him
would it have been?
Last week.
We talked about
Not
him
during the
last
quiz.
week. Oh. Okay. 2002. Man. Okay. And on a Western Conference team. So this would have been after Pavel Bure's time with the Canucks. Alex McGillney would have been gone. Is it Marcus Naslund?
Nope.
No.
Not Marcus Naslund.
Am I on the wrong track thinking Vancouver Canucks?
Not on the Vancouver Canucks.
Not on the Vancouver Canucks. Okay. 2000.
So this one he's a Canadian player.
He's a Canadian.
Former Canadian player.
Former Canadian player.
Yeah.
Like former.
So, Canadian. Not a Habs.
Okay.
Not a Habs player.
And you don't mean he was Canadian citizenship and then renounced it and became an American?
Nope.
No, okay.
I think he is still very much a Canadian.
Okay.
But apparently, as we learned last week, still hanging out in America.
Oh, okay.
And
we
getting
talked
interviewed
about him last week. Oh, right. Yes, Jerome McGinley. Mr. Boston Weather.
You're a 2002 Art Ross winner for the Calgary Flames.
Wow.
Jerome McGinley.
I would, wow, you know what? I would have struggled with that one for a while because I don't know if I remember that he had won an Art Ross. I knew he had won at least one Rocket Richard trophy.
50 goal season did he have? Yeah, he won definitely at least one Rocket.
Iggy.
Yep.
Man, okay, good one.
So you get a ton of bonus points for breaking my quiz. So 2019, Draisaitl, 2018, McDavid, 2017, McDavid, 2011, Daniel Sedin, 2010, Henrik Sedin, 2002, Jerome McGinley, 1987, Wayne Gretzky. Your last, now 7.
Yeah.
Art Ross winners based on Canadian-based teams going back to 1987. And the most recent one from this past year.
Yeah.
So spanning quite some time.
Amazing.
All right, Lekter. Hopefully this one I'm okay.
Okay.
So we, of course, talked about Braden Holtby earlier in the show.
Yes.
The former Vezina Trophy winner is looking for a fresh start with the Canucks after signing with them in the offseason. Holtby won the award as the league's top goaltender in 2005. Can you name the 2 other finalists for that award that season?
2015.
2015.
Okay. The other finalists for top goaltender. Okay, so 2015. Who was on top of their game in 2015? Oh, I have a feeling this one's going to be just a struggle. So I don't think it would have been Roberto Luongo. That's kind of after his heyday. He was winding down the old career in Florida by that point. Okay.
So neither have actually ever won. They were both finalists, but neither have actually won a Vezina Trophy.
Okay.
One from the West, one from the East.
Is Carey Price weirdly in there?
So
I can't remember if he'd won a Vezina.
He won a Vezina. He's only won one Vezina. Was not a finalist.
That's the
in
weird
this
side
season.
that he's only won one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Who else would have been one from?
Both
the
are
East,
still
one from the
active.
West. Okay. Both are still
active. One of them is still active with the same club. One of them is not.
Let's go with Tuukka Rask.
No, not Tuukka Rask. No, that would have been one of my guesses.
Okay. One is still with the club that they were a finalist with. One is not.
Yes.
Okay. Whew. This, wow.
So that was the year that the Blackhawks won.
Okay.
So maybe think about another team that enjoyed...
Jonathan Quick.
There you go.
Okay.
Another team that enjoyed success. Obviously coming off of 2 cups in 3 years as a member of the LA Kings. So he was a player that is still with the team that he was a finalist for back in 2015.
Surprisingly,
I know.
Man, was he awful last
year. He went downhill pretty quick.
Oh, boy.
So still a member of the Kings, but 3 great seasons, winning in 2012 and 2014.
Yeah.
Was a finalist in 2015, but was beaten out by Braden Holtby.
Okay.
Which would make our other finalist. Now in the Western Conference... on a team in the Central Division, he is no longer the starter, but at the time, he was the starting goaltender of a very good Eastern Conference team.
Okay.
In the Atlantic Division.
Lundqvist.
Not Lundqvist, no.
The Atlantic Division. Oh, that makes it tougher if it's not Lundqvist. Oh, who could it be? 2015 Atlantic Division. Oh, man. Oh, Atlantic Division is not... Yeah, that's the Metropolitan Division I was thinking of. Okay. Atlantic Division. So, like Toronto, no. Montreal, I already said Price, no.
It's not going to be
Jimmy
a Senator.
Howard, no.
No. It's not going to be a Florida Panther.
Andre Vasilevsky?
No,
Okay,
but you're very warm. Well, you've got the right team.
Oh, I've got the right team.
You've got the right team.
Oh, Ben Bishop.
Now a member of the Dallas Stars.
That was a tricky one.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was enjoying some very good seasons with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Right.
Before cap hell, I guess, as we've come to know it.
Man, that was a good one.
All right.
You can give yourself enough credit. That was a good quiz.
They do get a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. The Vezina is really tough because it's, you'll get different finalists every year just based on the season. So yeah, I give you full credit. That wasn't easy.
Well, thank you for putting that together. That has humbled me. Well done, sir.
It has that effect, eh?
It's so fun.
Doug Christie, damn it!
Oh, it's so fun being the one to dangle that in front of someone else's face.
Yeah, you think you know, and then
all right,
brings you right back down to earth.
Well, I'll come back with something for you next week, and
look forward to it.
And everyone else listening. We're going to wrap it up quickly here on Cabin Sports Radio.
The Cabin Sports Radio Podcast, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Cabin Sports Radio, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward, as we continue the countdown towards the greatest time of year normally for hockey fans, the World Junior Hockey Tournament. The Bar Down crew put together a little hockey slang dictionary to help you out with that. And I thought, well, let's go a little more in depth and focus on one entry in that dictionary, Tarps Off. Have a great week.
I'm TJ Oshie with the Washington Capitals.
Hey, I'm Anthony Duclair of the Ottawa Senators.
And today I'm going to teach you about
Tarps Off.
Tarps off?
Help me out. Tarps off.
The ice is like brand new or something like that. You're taking off like the tarp of the ice.
Tarps off is when the boys or whoever is taking off their shirt or jersey. Post practice, guys walking around with their tarps off.
For some reason, it always happens at weddings. It might just be hockey players.
Yeah, I was at Granlund's wedding in Finland, and we spent 3 hours on the dance floor. There's no tarps on.
I am very guilty of going tarps off at more than one wedding. My wife is not proud of it. It's usually the next morning where she's got to tell me that I might be getting a little old to go tarps off.
Most guilty of tarps off in the Ottawa Senators probably Brady Tkachuk for sure. We're always telling them, put a shirt on, it's embarrassing.
If anyone's going to do it, I'd say it's going to be Ovi.
Usually you're trying to show off or whatnot, but you're getting chirped either way.
Tarps off, boys. You looking for a Tilly, buddy? Let's have a Donnybrook.